welcome to another episode of BFF, a show where two best friends review movies because fan friction. We're your hosts. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Joe. And this month, much like last month, we did a backlog month. We're doing that again this month. But as we're December was Ashley's birthday month, January is mine. So it was my choice on what movies we watched. And she chose a theme, so I decided to choose a theme as well. But my theme is a bit different. You want to talk about the irony of this for a moment?
Yes, so this is a little bit of what we call dramatic irony, where you know what we're reviewing, yet we don't know.
As of what you're watching right now.
Yes, because you have the benefit of the thumbnail.
The completed piece.
Yeah.
And what I have here is a D12. And what we've done is compiled a group of 12 movies into a table and assigned a number to each of them.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and throw that up for you so we don't have to read all the titles.
Right.
Because we're lazy.
It takes extra time. Yeah. And what we're going to do is at the beginning of each episode, we're going to roll the die. And we're going to see what we're going to watch.
Yeah, some of the choices we are very excited about, and some of them not so much.
I'm relatively okay with most of the choices.
Well, you did assemble the table of choices. Yes. So the list is kind of a combination of things I haven't seen, things you haven't seen, and of course the mutual.
Yeah. I would say there's probably more on here that's mutual or I haven't seen. Mm-hmm. So before we get started, is there any that you're really hoping doesn't get rolled?
I'm really hoping we don't have to watch Sleepy Hollow.
That's fair.
That's pretty much the only one.
That's fair.
And then maybe X-Men just because, that's an alright movie. I know that's one you haven't seen.
That's one I have not seen at all.
So, shall we stop idling and actually roll the die?
Yep.
Alright, and so that we cannot be accused of lying and just going, yeah, we totally randomly landed on a movie we wanted to see. We're going to film the dice roll. And so the quality of that dice roll will be better because we're going to film it on the phone. So get that set up. It is recording.
Ready?
No. And it rolled a 2.
Cowboys and Aliens. Cowboys and Aliens was one that it's one of those movies that when you see the trailers, you're like, this has a bunch of really great actors, but I'm sure it's going to be the worst.
Yeah, because I remember Harrison Ford is in it.
And Daniel Craig.
Okay.
And I can't remember her name.
Olivia Wilde?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Olivia Wilde.
I remember more of this movie than I guess I had thought.
And Daniel Craig has some weird alien gun on his arm.
Maybe?
No, I do remember that's a thing from the trailers. But yeah, we'll give it a watch because you've seen this. It's been a while.
Yeah. I remember there was Cowboys and Aliens, and yeah.
It was something?
It was something.
All right.
All righty. Well,
we'll
we're
going
to pause, and we'll be back.
And we're back.
Yeah.
That was better than I expected.
I honestly did not remember any of the movie from my first viewing, so it was kind of like a brand new movie for me.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun than I remember it being. Again, like the first time I watched it, I was doing fan friction prep, so not as engaged with the story. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The whole thing felt like a video game.
Yes.
The whole time.
Dude, like this movie came out and it just kind of, like no one expected it to do well. The title was kind of a joke and then they announced the cast and everyone was like, is this like some April Fool's prank? Because there's a lot of people in this movie that are of some note. I mean, not just Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig. And in general, it's a fairly heavy cast and like from across multiple generations because Clancy Brown was big in the 80s as like an action person. Like he was the Kurgan, his freaking Highlander villain.
The whole idea of like when you look at the cast and you look at the title of the movie, it feels like one of those movies that would have been in like the previews for like the joke previews on Tropic Thunder.
Yes. Oh, that is like it. This movie, even though it came out in 2011, feels very 90s. Like that 90s like cash-in movie, which Tropic Thunder was making fun of a lot of those. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and you brought up the video game thing. This movie felt ripe for that whole movie video game tie-in.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I would imagine none exists.
I don't think so.
We would have probably heard about it.
I think so. I was working at GameStop when this movie came out.
Okay.
So I'd imagine I would have heard about it. One may have been announced and it never got released or something.
Yeah, maybe because the movie didn't do so well. But
Or
usually they make those things simultaneously.
Same time, yeah. Because the pace of this movie feels very much like levels in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the before the town, he gets to the town, you have all these things going on. Like even whenever he comes across that family of like 4 guys, when he's just waking up in the desert, that feels like that's perfect to be a tutorial stage.
Yeah.
Like this is how you fight in this game.
And then the weird flashbacks and the color tones that they use kind of feel like something that they would do in a video game stylistically.
Totally.
To kind of, like take you out of the narrative to kind of elongate the game. But yeah. I didn't feel that any of the flashbacks were out of place. Like, how some movies will use flashbacks way too much?
Yeah. Or the earliest flashbacks will be like way too revealing as to what's going on in the plot of the movie.
But these definitely were not too revealing.
I really, really enjoyed in general, the alien design. I thought they were really cool looking.
Yeah, even for like a total CGI.
Yeah, no,
it didn't look too bad.
I didn't expect anything more or anything less. I felt like it actually did a pretty decent job at looking like they were big, scary, intimidating, powerful aliens.
And I like how they didn't ever call them aliens, demons. These are demons.
Which was a really cool point of contention point in this movie is that they refer to them as demons. I'm like, what would you consider them? Like, outer space isn't even a concept to these people
exactly.
yet.
So you have to kind of frame what you understand about the world.
A lot of the characters are fantastic. Sam Rockwell plays Doc, a little like bartender.
And he's such a nerd.
So nerdy. I think he's that stereotypical, was born in a big city, but thought he could make his riches in the West opening up a saloon at a frontier town. And nobody likes him or respects him because he's such a nerd.
He's an outsider, and he's not very manly. Yep. Clancy Brown as the doc / preacher.
Meacham.
Yeah. He was so great.
He was one of my favorite characters. And then, of course, we have Daniel Craig as Jake from State Farm. Or just Jake.
Yeah.
His name's just Jake.
Yeah. Outlaw Jake.
Which is your typical amnesiac hero who isn't really a hero and doesn't want to be a hero, but he is a hero. And
yeah.
Okay, there is one issue I have is he is way bad, like way awesome, like super. Like in the first scene when he's just waking
kills
up,
all those dudes.
Those guys are like all trying to attack him, and he takes all 3 or 4 of them out like in the scope of a few seconds, and it's like no effort for him. And you never find out why he's that good.
Yeah.
Like the only thing he got from these aliens is the little arm thingy he's got, the little wristband thing.
Yeah,
his fancy gun thing. Whatever it is.
What do they call it? Mega Man? Mega Buster?
Yeah,
his Mega Buster.
His Buster arm.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this could have been a Mega Man game.
Oh man. Someone please make a Mega Man /
Cowboys
and Aliens mashup. That would be awesome.
But he's just this like super awesome dude for reasons.
Yeah, and I know like one part where he has kind of like an extra sensory like perception. They're in the saloon, and he's like, "Get away from me!" Is he like can sense the sheriff?
Yeah.
So it's like, how does he have these powers?
I mean, that could be chalked up to like the gut instinct kind of thing, but that's still too
convenient.
A little too on the nose. But I don't know. I was happy because at one point you find out like what happened to him, what happened to his wife, and all sorts of other stuff. And you also find out that what happened when he escaped from the aliens, and he scarred up the face of the alien that was experimenting on him really bad. And I loved that they brought that particular alien back. That was so good.
That was cool. Yeah, we called him Scarface.
Yep. Because
He had a big scar across his face.
Yep.
There was a lot of great characters in this movie, even with the cast as huge as it was. Harrison Ford, I actually enjoyed his performance. I didn't think it was too bad.
It wasn't phoned in nearly as much as it could have been.
Exactly. And he's kind of this cattle baron, and he's running this town, and everyone fears him.
Because basically this town wouldn't. I think what I gathered from the little conversations back and forth with some of the characters, the exposition chats, is that this town was like a gold frontier town, and then the gold dried up, and then Harrison Ford. The whole reason the town still exists is because Harrison Ford brings the character's name is Woodrow Dollarhide, which is such a weird name.
That sounds like a fake name.
It does.
Because he runs cattle.
It's the whole reason. It's the whole reason this town even exists is he runs his cattle through the town, so to speak, or near the town. So there's money to be had in ranchers, I guess.
Yeah, and his son, Percy, played by Paul Dano, is the worst spoiled brat.
Oh man, it is like textbook nepotism and dynastic cycle and everything. Because this kid's a borderline sociopath.
Yes, he's torturing everyone in town with oh, you're all so poor, and I'm gonna kill you all. And
when we're introduced to Percy, he's shooting the sign over the saloon entrance for reasons.
Yeah, because he's bored, and then he has an encounter with Jake, and Jake just does not care. He's like, whatever, man.
Knees him in the crotch.
Yeah.
It's a fun scene.
Yeah, and it causes Percy to be thrown in the slammer, even though, well, my daddy will get me out of jail, and the sheriff's he's like, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah. And, well, even the sheriff is kind of like, look, man, you shot one of my deputies, I can't.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? What do you expect me to do? But yeah, things ramp up when Daniel Craig, or Jake from State Farm, and Percy are being transferred out because also Jake apparently has
a criminal record for general mayhem, arson, murder.
Mayhem, theft, manslaughter, all sorts of other.
Yeah, every charge.
And they even say, look, you are one of 3 people wanted for it, and since you're the only one we have, you're also an accessory to the other 2 guys' crimes, so... Yeah. Federal prison for you, bud.
Good old
Frontier justice.
Frontier justice, there you go.
But as they're being carted up at night to take them to, I guess, the fort or the nearest big city to be transferred to the federal system, that's when Woodrow shows up with his posse of people to get his son, and as well as Jake, because apparently Jake stole from Woodrow, even though Jake doesn't remember any of this stuff. Yeah, it's this big mess of amnesia, and we're finding out Jake's story as Jake's finding out Jake's story, which is honestly a really good framing device. I know some games do that where you find out about the world because you're either new to this world or you have amnesia. So Woodrow is there to get his son and Jake, and then the aliens show up.
And they take half the people with them.
Yeah, they seem to be targeting.
Yeah, the sheriff,
Doc's wife, Percy. Percy gets kidnapped. And then other random townsfolk, but I think those are the only 3 that are actually characters.
Yeah. Named characters.
Yeah. And then this is when Jake finds out his little arm thing is actually a gun, and he shoots one of them down, and they decide after seeing one of the creatures attacking someone else to track them in the morning and start finding the townsfolk that were kidnapped. And that's when they all posse up and go.
And this is when we kind of get to learn a little bit more about Olivia Wilde's character, Ella, where she's like, can I join too? And...
Oh, Meacham.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, sure, why not? We
got
already
a kid,
have
a dog, why not a woman?
But you always get the sense that there's something weird about her.
Yeah. I honestly, from the get-go, thought she was one of the aliens, just in disguise or something.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's not right what my people are doing, or something like that. But, yeah, she was really odd. Very off. Like she knew more about Jake
Then Jake knew about Jake.
Yeah, and she immediately zeroed in on his wrist thing, the wrist gun cannon thingy. Um, so yeah, but which they didn't play that subtly either. They kind of hammered it home pretty quick. So along the way, they find the weirdest thing, which is an overturned riverboat.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere where there is a river.
What they said was 500 miles from the nearest river large enough to support a ship that big. And that's just insane. So I guess the aliens did something about that.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
There would be a lot of gold on a riverboat.
Yeah, you find out, and that's bringing to a point. You find out through Ella, who tells them what they're... Because you find out eventually Ella is also an alien. She's not one of the aliens that are there. She's another kind of alien. And they go into reasons and explaining it, and it's all things... but she basically explains that they're there for gold too, which a scene later on really hammers that home when Jake finds all of the people that have been kidnapped. There's like pocket watches and rings everywhere around them, and I'm like, that's why they were targeted.
Yeah,
because they had gold. Because there's little ships that fly around and just shoot little grappling hooks and capture them.
Yeah, especially that third act of the movie. That's when it really felt the most video game-like.
Oh my god, so
where
much.
It's like, now we're going to storm the fortress.
We're going to set up tactics, and we're going to distract them while you go in and do this.
And like, Jake's at the choke point taking out aliens.
So many. Oh, God bless the choke point.
And then a lot of like little plot twists in the movie, just like in a video game, there would be plot twist character reveals.
Well, and even going back to Jake at the choke point, the one thing that just drove it home that, oh my god, this feels so much like a video game, is Jake's little arm cannon. Because it has, like, whenever he activates it, like, it has a little handle that pops up and a heads up display opens up where he can like see through walls, and it targets and all sorts of other stuff. So like, I'm just like, this would be such a video game thing. Yeah. But that was awesome. The whole third act where they're storming the base.
And we do see a lot of character growth with the characters as well.
Which is not expected in a movie like this.
No, not in a movie called Cowboys and Aliens. It sounds like, a B kind of, feature.
Yeah.
Like with Harrison Ford's character Woodrow, he kind of has like a partner played by Adam Beach, who's a Native American that he raised from a child because his family was killed. Yeah,
but he always apparently treated them not great.
Yeah.
At one point, I think they're talking about when they're camping out in the overturned ship. They're talking about something, and Nat brings up, why don't we go call the army and ride in with them, and et cetera, et cetera. And Harrison Ford shuts him down. Woodrow shuts him down, just being like, those stories weren't for you, they were for my son. And then later, there's a lot of redeeming moments when Nat is talking to Black Knife. He's saying all these great things about Woodrow, about how he's... Like, he doesn't seek out battle, but he won't run from it, and all sorts of other stuff. And basically, towards the end of it is like, at one point, Nat does get killed by an alien. And Woodrow is there for his dying breath because he keeps the alien from, like, tearing him apart, I guess. And I forget what Nat says, but at one point, Woodrow is just like, I wish I had a son like you, or something along those lines.
Had said,
or you're the son I always wanted.
Yeah, Nat said, I had always wanted to ride into battle with you, and Woodrow was, I wish I had a son like that, I could be proud of, basically, because like he really cannot be proud of Percy.
No.
He's always getting into trouble and having to fix his mess, which obviously Woodrow has enabled him to be that way.
But Nat turned out okay.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, he didn't. He died.
Yeah.
Not the point. But yeah, it was all in all lots of interesting character growth. We see Doc become a marksman and a hero, saves Woodrow's life.
The little boy.
Oh yeah, the little boy. Holy cow. Because he runs and hides because he's being the spotter for the group of characters that are going to save everybody from the town. And he at one point runs and hides because the aliens are, because two of them are tracking him or following him. And he hides in this little rock, and an alien tries to grab him. Well, it like presses its chest against the opening and opens its torso with its little hands, little three fingered hands,
little hands,
trying to grab him. I guess pull him out so it could like beat him to death with its big hands. But like this is a really cool design flaw that creatures could have or whatever. Its little vestigial hands also have like encased in its chest right where its heart is. So he's just like, has a boot knife that he stabs into the heart and kills a freaking alien like that, and it was like instantaneous.
It was awesome.
There was a part where you freaked out because all the horse died.
All the horses just kept like flying everywhere. It's like, oh no, poor little horses.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Those aliens did not.
They were not messing around.
Oh man, what else can we say about this movie?
Again, it's just very much like from the beginning to end, a video game that's, if I had to play it as a video game, I would enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. And as a movie, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's because I went in with low expectations, and that's probably why I enjoyed it as much as I did. Because I didn't expect more than a movie 2 Munch Pop. I would have loved to have seen this on the big screen.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Holy cow, I think I would have enjoyed this. Because it's not as smart as a really good action flick like Hot Fuzz, for example. It's not as intelligent of an action flick, but it is definitely all about the spectacle. The designs were cool, the action scenes were cool, the set pieces were pretty great. There's one part, I think, where there was like a terrible green screen effect.
Yeah, there's a few places where it's like they don't look like they're together.
Yeah. But all in all, it was a pretty fantastic movie. So
yeah.
Do we rate it?
Yeah.
All right. What would you give it?
I would give it a 7 passing score. It's fun. I think it would have been probably a fun video game more so than like it's not a piece of art,
No.
when movies, are concerned.
We do not pretend that this is art.
No, but it's not. It's a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford, I think, is doing a decent job, both the way he and
Daniel
Craig are dressed. It's like they both look like they were dressed as Han Solo.
Yeah, a little bit.
The black vest and the white shirt.
But we have Indiana Jones and James Bond on the same screen. It's not the same ones from the same era, but it's close. Yeah. I'd give it an 8 personally. And I think I would have rated it lower if I went in with higher expectations. But I did not have high expectations. It is not anything more than a throwaway popcorn flick. But I don't think it deserves all the hate that it got. I mean, hate may not even be the right word. I think it deserves more love than it got.
Yeah, I like how they cross the genres together, Western with science fiction.
Yes, but not so much that like Wild Wild West did, where it was all steampunky and all that. No, that's too much.
The beginning of the movie when we kind of wake up and it's with him and he's got the weird device kind of reminded me a little bit of Wild Wild West, but that quickly went away.
Yeah.
This is way better than Wild Wild West.
I will say this movie proves my theory that all we need to be a better civilization is an alien invasion. Because it's like...
It brought everybody together.
If you think about Independence Day, everybody put their problems aside when the aliens invaded. This movie, by the end of it, the town's going to be growing.
Yes.
And we're going to be better people. And Woodrow's I'm going to help this town be a better town. And Percy's like, cool, Dad, I'm a respectable son now and everything.
Yeah, because the aliens wiped his memory because of
or at least dented it.
The traumatic situation, a lot of people didn't have very good memories, so it's like, you don't remember being such a jerk. Yay, we can reprogram you. Yay, you can be the son I've always wanted.
Right? Which is a really bad message.
Yeah.
But, I guess if it gets a sociopath off the streets. All in all, great movie. Not good artistically,
no.
Not empirically good, but
a fun movie.
If you enjoy a really good romp with some one-liners and some witty retorts and action scenes and stuff, this is a movie for you.
Yeah.
I think if you enjoy movies like Hot Fuzz, which are smart action movies, you will enjoy this for the reasons that Nick Frost's character from Hot Fuzz would enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much that kind of movie that he would love. The really bad action.
Yeah.
But I think next we have the post-fan friction portion.
Yes, and so we're going to take a bit of a break before we review that footage. Yes. So when you see us next, we won't look exactly the same.
Yeah.
we're back.
So we watched the fan fiction.
Yeah, this was from the championship episode.
Which featured Tom, Sam, and Brian. Question was, what movie flopped at the box office but shouldn't have?
Sam chose The Dr. Dolittle from 1967.
Tom chose Treasure Planet from 2002.
And Brian chose Cowboys and Aliens from 2011.
Which every time I tried to look it up for any notes, my brain just went to Cowboys and Indians.
I think that's probably what the marketing team was trying to invoke.
I'm sure.
So for Brian's opening statement, he said that the film had an amazing cast, talent, A-list talent all the way down to the character actors.
Which we even talked about with a lot of their great cast choices. But yeah, and the director was Jon Favreau, who was off of Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and working basically on those films, and he had worked in those action movies before, and
big budget spectacles as well, and this is definitely a big budget spectacle.
Yeah, lots of special effects, lots of set design that's massive, and
then Brian brought up a point that I wasn't aware of, and I had forgotten about, that Cowboys and Aliens is based off of a graphic novel, so it had some source material and what he called a pretty strong premise.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, and it's kind of an interesting premise because we see a lot of science fiction movies nowadays where like aliens invade modern day, and we have stuff like the Air Force to fend them off.
He also said it was a good balance of sci-fi and Western elements, and
I think pulls it off better than things like Wild Wild West tried to do.
Yeah, that's definitely. There's a lot of, as was brought up during the fight, a lot of genre mashing of sci-fi and Western that doesn't work real well, and Wild Wild West is definitely probably at the top of the list for at least my list.
Yep.
Yeah, and then some counterpoints that were brought up. Sam talked about how the studio or the director shouldn't have banked on Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig as stars, especially because Ford had like a string of flops in this period. And he also brought out like a whole list of these genre films like Ninjas vs. Zombies and all these versus movies that were popular at the time. And
which I'm not gonna lie, when that movie was coming out, that's kind of where my mind went to. Tom brought up a lot of Geiger-esque ripoffs, which I wouldn't necessarily say that, because it had a lot of that biomechanic concept and the weird ridges and strange lines, but it's nowhere near as bad as Aliens.
Yeah, the aliens weren't very scary looking at all, but
they were reminiscent of like freaking aliens from Independence Day on steroids.
Or even some things you might see in Men in Black.
Yeah, and that might be blamed on the bad CGI, but it in general was not as menacing as it could be. But that makes sense too, because lower tech and lower capability to fight back in a story probably needs lower threatening aliens. And he also brought up that Firefly did it better. Well, Firefly is different. Firefly is a space show with Western themes and tones, and Cowboys and Aliens is a Western movie with aliens. It's very different. There's not even aliens in Firefly. I mean, come on.
I don't know, because I'm one of the only people in the whole internet that's never seen Firefly. I know.
I'm so embarrassed right now.
I'm always embarrassing you. It's okay.
I think comparing Cowboys and Aliens, you'd be better served comparing something like Attack the Block, which is a small community, because it's not like this is a global invasion concept.
It's very localized.
So I think that would be a fair comparison.
One of my favorite moments from the fight was Tom bringing up the Smurfs, and he had said that it had opened ahead of Cowboys and Aliens.
And Brian's response was classic.
Yes, he was like, well, who can argue against the juggernaut of the Smurfs?
Well, apparently Box Office Mojo can.
Yeah, so at the time it sounded totally reasonable, but we decided to double check just because it's curious, and Box Office Mojo has Cowboys and Aliens edged out just a little, like $1 million higher than Smurfs.
It is $1 million or less.
Yeah,
so it's not a huge margin of difference.
No, and the opening weekend numbers, even for 2011, just seem kind of low. They're both in the 30,000 range.
Yeah, and the third place for that weekend was a movie that opened the previous weekend, which was Captain America, at about 25 million, which was down 60% from its previous weekend. So you also have to imagine that might take a small chunk out of the because it
The
might
potential.
be it might be the same audience that would go see either movie because they're action movies. But in general, well, they're both technically comic movies, aren't they?
Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
Hey, the Smurfs is a comic too.
Oh my god, that weekend was dominated by comic book movies.
So Brian actually got eliminated first, so it was between Tom and Sam. And Sam got the point because he did bring up more factual things like what his movie was up against. And I brought up in my fact-checking what movies Treasure Planet was up against. And so I think if Tom had mentioned, like, being up against Harry Potter and then the Santa Claus 2, he probably would have been able to sink it, because how can you compete against Tim Allen as Santa Claus a second time? And people were starving for that sequel, apparently, because I think it did pretty well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the juggernaut of Chamber of Secrets. Everybody loved Harry Potter.
Coming off of Sorcerer's Stone.
The previous year, yeah.
Which was a runaway hit. Because it had fans of Harry Potter already, and then you had people that loved the movies.
Yes.
I still haven't read the books, so... You haven't seen Firefly.
You haven't read Harry Potter. We can both be in fandom fail.
There we go.
One point that really spoke to me, especially in our current movie climate, was Brian talking about how people just kind of looked at the title, looked at the poster, prejudged the movie, and then moved on. But yeah, I think Sam well earned his point in that round. I think Brian was a little sad to get eliminated first, but, again, all really good choices.
Yes.
So, as far as it fitting the question of an underrated or a movie that should have done better at the box office, how would you rank Brian's choice?
I'm gonna put a 10, if only because the other two movies had bigger movies going up against it. Mm-hmm. Because the opening weekend for Cowboys and Aliens had Smurfs, and not that like we're trying to say it. Because it beat Smurfs, but it didn't beat Smurfs by a wide enough margin to be like, hey, man, we blew you out of the water. And it had, like, was it Crazy Stupid Love was the other movie it was opening with? And no one cared. So, I mean, it's really funny, too, because this is the only movie that I think it legitimately did better than the other two.
Yeah, worldwide, budget-wise. That's why I'm going to go ahead and give this one just 9 out of 10, because the other movies did not ever recoup their budget.
Yeah.
But Brian's did when you add the foreign box office to the domestic.
But, yeah, so I give it a 10, you give it a 9.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice, but when you compare it to the other ones on the list... because it did actually make money back, albeit it was, a foreign, it was foreign and domestic combined. I can't say that it was totally a total flop.
No, that's true. The other two actually were. I want to say, was it Dr. Dolittle cost about $17 million to make, and only made like $9 million?
Yes.
And then Treasure Planet cost like $140 million.
And made 109 back.
Yeah, so both of them lost like
a lot.
Like Dr. Dolittle almost lost half of its cost.
Yeah, speaking of their box offices, reminds me of another point that I think Brian brought up about, like, everybody loves Disney movies. The fact that Treasure Planet didn't do well is very telling.
That's true. So I don't know. I do enjoy Treasure Planet, but I will say it is a lower ranking on my Disney list. Sometimes it will completely be off the Disney list depending on my mood.
I definitely forgot it existed.
Yeah, it's forgettable, but it's good. Every time I think about it, I'm like, why don't I watch that movie more? I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun.
The fight was really good.
Yeah, definitely great. If you haven't seen the championship episode, that's definitely one to check out.
I can say this fight was full of one of my biggest pet peeves is after Jack says final arguments, people keep interrupting each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, guys, this is final arguments. So now we're going to go to Twitter, where we asked a very pivotal question.
Mm-hmm. We want to know what your favorite underrated film is, and we kind of gave some parameters. Was it a box office bomb? Was it critically panned? Just didn't find its audience? So basically just trying to mimic this question without giving too much information away.
Yep.
And so some people had some questions about whether it could be just this past year or of all time and, just any time.
Nikki Baldwin at Nikki T. Baldwin said Philomena. It's acclaimed for Oscar noms, but it feels like it didn't get the attention it deserves. It's great. It's a great theme about forgiveness. Harry Lee at Iron Man's Intern said, "Don't know if it qualifies, but is blown away by Kubo and the two strings." I don't think it was critically panned. I think actually everyone loved Kubo.
Yeah, I just don't think it made a whole lot of money, so it would fit the question. Ben McElroy at McElroyBen13 said for 2016, Pop Star, so funny but no one saw it.
That was actually one on my list of stuff I wanted to see, and for some reason we just didn't. Ryan at the Ohio Review said, box office-wise, Dread, critically panned, Pandorum?
Ronnie Williams at Binging Netflix said, the movie Yes Man, everybody keeps making the wrong assumptions it's the same as Liar Liar, but it's the better of the two. I know that has Jim Carrey in it.
Travis Wachowski at Travis at Marvel says, it's a tie between these two movies for me. Deuces Wild and Pool Hall Junkies. My movie pick for this is The Big Lebowski. It is a movie that when it came out, critics didn't like it. I don't think it did as well, but it definitely found a fandom afterwards. It is in the grouping that you would call cult classic because it has exploded in popularity since it came out.
And then speaking of something that's become a cult classic, mine would be Office Space, based off of the little cartoon skits from SNL, which people don't even realize half the time.
Yep, Mike Judge got to start there.
That movie is so great, with one of the best song and visuals ever, where they have the printer that's been acting up and they take a baseball bat to it.
Yeah, it's glorious.
Well, I guess that's about it for us.
Yeah.
You can follow both of us on Twitter. For me, that's at _Mrs. Davis.
And I'm at Drake Masters.
And we'll see you next time with our next random roll.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you.
Bye.
But as we're starting this, we don't know because right here in my hand, I have a little D12. And what I've done is taken 12 movies and we've put them...
Really, Atticus? Could you not? Could you not?
All right, you've lost your privilege to be on the table.